Aero-News Network's coverage of the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International's Exponential 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Let Patrick Neal and Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonex Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonexaerospace.com.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
And here we are. Welcome to AUVSI 2017 Exponential. We're here with the boss, Brian Wynne. We're so pleased to be able to work with you today. I walked into here this morning, got a chance to see a phenomenal opening session, especially with the work done by Northrop Grumman and Intel. And Intel really talk about strutting your stuff. But it was obvious that there was a tremendous sense of energy, almost destiny in the room. And I would imagine at this stage of the game, from where you're sitting, all you can see is the work that you got to do.
Well, I forget who I'm quoting that talk about standing in acres of diamonds. You can't pick them all up at the same time, and not to say that there aren't some challenges in there, some rocks to break. But I think this event is really demonstrating that we've successfully expanded the industry, from the military side into the commercial side. We've also got military folks here. We've got counter UAS going on here. There's a lot of different elements to the way the show and the community is expanding that are really on display here, I'll say it that way.
Before we get into looking to the future, let's talk a little bit about the past. Where did AUVSI come from? What was the vision or the dream that drove the organization? Because there's a lot of history to it that I've been reading up on, and this was not an overnight process.
No, the organization started 45 years ago at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I'm a student of history, so I'm still looking for the people that founded the organization and to thank them, because they clearly had a vision. This was post-Vietnam days where there were a lot of different things going on, and their drones had been evidently utilized in Vietnam, but to try and spare some of our pilots from going down particular alleys and so forth. But after the war was over, all of that was kind of wrapped up, but not at Wright-Patterson. They continued to work on the technology. They founded this organization eventually, and we're actually going through this history at the event. We're doing past present, and future. And we're doing it graphically. We've got a guy here named Jim Nuttall that is graphically capturing the stories and the ideas and the vision that people have at this event. So I only know this because I was sitting in that session yesterday where we had some of the folks that know the history of the organization. So I don't know all the different pieces to it, but I do know that that has been going on for a long time. We are now on an accelerated curve, and stand back. It's fun.
How did you come to this?
Well, my career has been about promoting technology, and particularly where technology intersects with regulations. And in some instances, we've been using policy and regulations to advance technology. In some instances, like this one, we have been trying to get regulated, as it were, get permission to fly, for example, and now increasingly get permission to have automated vehicles on the road, get the Coast Guard with coal regs to wrap their minds around the potential for this technology as well. So I got involved basically because I love things that fly. I'm a pilot. I love technology. I love the process of figuring out how you go from a technology push to a technology pull, an application pull, and that's really what you see happening. We're right at that moment in time where large end user communities are coming in and saying, got to have it, right? We see the value, we want to incorporate it into our business model, and we got to have it. And it's not just commercial side, it's first responders, it's the scientific community, et cetera. Everybody understands that this is the best way to collect data in many instances, and data is going to be king. As Brian Krzanich said this morning, data is the new oil.
It's a beautiful bit of phraseology. The part that's interesting about this industry right now is, we wake up in the morning, we take a look at the news feeds for the day, and it is a rare day when we don't see a new implementation for unmanned technology. And I'm just all kinds of things. I'm a student of history as well, but more important, I've got a phenomenal love for science fiction, where anything's possible. And even was friends with a number of the major authors through Jerry Purnell and Bob Heinlein and a number of others. And I don't think they could have possibly envisioned what we're seeing now, and more important, what we're going to see just in the next few years. How do you, running AUVSI, try to keep a world view of everything? I mean, the so-called God view of this must be breathtaking.
Well, I certainly don't have that. I spent a lot of time thinking about technologies that will enable across domains. I think that's really, it's a good filter to put these things through. And as an advocate, as somebody who thinks about how do we get the regulators and the legislators and the general public to appreciate this, it's really important to basically be able to learn in one domain and scale it across domains. So again, that was part of the idea of having Intel speak this morning. Their Mobileye acquisition was a good example of them acquiring technology. Brian Krzanich talked about some of the technologies that they've been developing in-house that scale across these. There's ground robotics, there's maritime applications, things that fly. So that's the way I look at it. I look at all things unmanned is our catchphrase for think broad, think big, and think transformational.
From where you sit right now, where are the greatest opportunities and where are the greatest cautions? What interests you or intrigues you the most for the future of this industry? What concerns you the most?
Well, on the air side, we're clearly at that stage now where these communities that I've been talking about, I mean, we think about them as vertical end users, right? Law enforcement or first responders are kind of a vertical end user. The military is an end user, a vertical end user. But now you've got agriculture. Okay, we've seen that one coming for a long time. Construction's big, mining is big. All these different folks, utilities for energy delivery and so forth. How can we get them to learn from each other? And I'm seeing that. Again, that was part of the design of this year's show. Let's get these people talking to each other. Let's get the early adopters talking to each other. Let's face it, if you're doing vertical infrastructure is vertical infrastructure in many respects, right? Not a whole lot of difficulty with that now under the regulations, so easy for folks that are inspecting cell towers to learn from people that are inspecting flare stacks, et cetera, et cetera. And more importantly, we need them to share information about, hey, I just got permission to fly in this airspace with these mitigations, or got this waiver with these mitigations. How did you do that, right? So that we can get more people to benefit from that. So I see that is the real opportunity now to really get this thing accelerating. And it's not just the commercial opportunities, but I think the commercial opportunities, it's got to be sustainable over time. There's not a lot of people making the right amount of money yet. That's not sustainable over time. We have to get people making money. So it's really about getting people through that early adopter stage into more and more people using things. On the cautionary side, right now we've got a hard stop on regulation because of we haven't yet gotten the notice of proposed rulemaking out for flight over people. That's unfortunately something we have got to get beyond, and we've got to get beyond it by essentially reordering our priorities and moving beyond anonymous flying. Right? People have got to be able to identify themselves. Local law enforcement that are really big on this technology, they want to use the technology just like our firefighters do, the law enforcement people do. They have to be able to identify what's an authorized drone. Right? I'm on this kick now of getting us beyond the no drone zone to the authorized only drone. Because there's going to be a lot of places where the people that are on site don't want drones randomly flying through their airspace, but they need to be able to use drones. So, Tappan Zee Bridge project is a good example. They approached me not too long ago. The security guys approached me for this multi-billion-dollar project. Their construction people need to use drones. They're using drones to rebuild the Tappan Zee Bridge. They don't want anybody else flying in there, anywhere near their construction, for a very good reason. Right now, the local law enforcement have no idea what's an authorized drone, what's not an authorized drone. So that's a cautionary tale right now, and concern about nefarious use, I think, will abate once we have the ability to identify drones. That's authorized, that one you want to pay attention to.
The FAA's actions in regards to the aviation side of the unmanned community have certainly been interesting over the last year. To a certain extent, we were waiting for them to embrace the industry, and boy, are they here now. There's been an interesting genesis in regards to what it took to get them to the table, and now that they're at the table, how that conversation is proceeding. Not to put you too much on this spot, but if you were going to give them a report card, how would you grade the FAA right now, and where is there room for improvement?
Well, I'm going to decline to grade the FAA. I'm about to have lunch with the administrator, and he's probably watching. So, no, I would grade the FAA pretty well. But I think generally speaking, it's not just about the FAA anymore. So I think that's the key thing, is understanding the FAA. I think, from the top down, from Administrator Hoyer to on down, have adopted a vastly more collaborative approach to this. Which is how we roll in AUVSI as well. So
there's been a real culture change there, hasn't there?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's, and I'm not inside the FAA, so I'm going to take their word for it that they're changing their culture. But it's not just the FAA. Right now, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security. We had some of their key officials here yesterday. There are concerns. So we need to address those concerns. We need to work with the FBI. We need to work with the Department of Justice that they answer to. We need to work with DHS, et cetera, and the FAA. So those are the kinds of things. It's almost becoming much more of a roundtable approach to getting the industry's collaboration. There tends to be, not by the FAA, but there tends to be a little bit of a view that industry is a problem. Maybe even the FAA is moving a little bit too quick. And I've been reminding people, the industry is going to bring you the solutions. That's what we do in aviation. The industry, helps with the problem and the challenge sets. We bring the solutions to the table, and then we work with the regulators to basically codify all of that. If industry is tagged as the problem when it's really the fact that the technology is moving so fast, I've been basically saying, let's be sure we've got our focus on the right challenge here, because you don't blame the thermometer if it's cold outside. Right? And there's some agencies that are kind of doing that right now. So it's really important for us at AUVSI to point out, this is a little bit like the internet. We're not going to close down the internet because somebody just stole my identity, right? But there are tools that I can use to protect my identity when I go out on the internet. There's antivirus software. We have to have all of that. Right? We need to be demonstrating the value of our technology, and we need to be providing the tools that allow for those who are dedicated to keeping us all safe the ability to do that.
Sounds like you've got a lot of work ahead of you. We're on the issue of federal preemption. It seems like not only does every day bring a new generation of ideas, but also a new generation of rules from the Okefenokee swamp or Tootieville in the middle of nowhere. They've all got drone regs now. They're all concerned about the future. They have no clue as to what's going on. How do we build a cohesive regulatory environment where the rules don't change every 150 yards?
Local dialogue. Really, that's been working for us. But yeah, that's where we've got a lot of work to do, because it's pretty easy to get suckered in by a negative narrative about, I even heard one last week that, this technology is putting people out of work, right? I was scratching my head going, well, you probably haven't seen our forecasts, and I don't think that that's true at all. Of course, when new technology comes in, it's very disruptive. So, if I'm a member of a taxi union, I probably don't like Uber a lot. But if people like the services that Uber provides, they're going to buy those services, and that might not necessarily be good for a taxi union, which could be a real political problem for a local municipality. So we have to be sensitive to that and foster that local conversation, so that people can see, oh yeah, there's a constituency here that really wants to utilize this technology. For us, the interesting part about our new initiative called the Remote Pilots Council is that we get people in the room, and people are dying to talk to each other, particularly local law enforcement. They want to know, okay, who's flying out there? What do you guys know? Are you a 4,000-hour pilot that was a former jet jockey and can read a sectional in your sleep, or you're somebody who doesn't spell Part 107 yet? And we've got all of those people now flying commercially. So fostering that local conversation has really been working quite well, and it's really hard to beat back ill-advised legislation or municipal rules, etc., unless people know, okay, how do I find out more about this? Right? They're going to go to a negative narrative if they don't understand it. We have a challenge to educating people. Sure, there's an over-the-top message that AUVSI provides, but there's nothing that can replace that local conversation, and that's what we're trying to foster increasingly.
That being the case, it seems like the role that AUVSI will play will evolve extensively, but how does the rank and file community, the commercial operator, the folks that are depending on those commercial operators, how do they interface with AUVSI to build a better environment for not just the industry, but for Joe drone pilot or Jane real estate agent or whatever the case may be that are using this technology?
Well, first off, that local conversation doesn't supplant the need for us to be getting regulations at the national level and at the international level. And there's going to be a really important announcement here shortly that I'm participating in with ICAO. So there's a lot of things that are moving forward on an international basis as well. We're looking for where those gaps are. We had a fascinating discussion in Denver. There was a member from Denver Tracon there who was the guy that designed the airspace. Right? He even put the tools up so that we could see, here's my challenge in trying to integrate UAS into the airspace. And he was doing that in good faith, very constructively explaining, what the opportunities were. And there was a guy there who had put in for permission to fly in Class D airspace that hadn't gotten that. And this was a very sophisticated pilot. He knew what he was doing. And the guy said, I remember that application. I approved that. But it didn't get approved back in Washington. And no clarity on why it wasn't approved in Washington. So there's the gap. I mean, this is going to be team sport going forward. I think it starts with that local conversation. It's got to marry up to what's happening in federal regulations. And you notice I didn't really answer your question about sovereignty of the airspace. That's going to be evolving. And there's going to be a role for folks that are at the local level, because all of the flying is essentially going to be local, at least for smalls. For larger platforms, it's a more nuanced discussion. But we are trying to find where that balance is. And I'd like to say, the FAA owns the airspace, everybody does what the FAA says, but I don't think that really is the right way to go about this. I think the right way to go about this is to make sure that the benefits to the people that want to use this technology are clear. The benefits not just to the commercial entities and the value add in an economic context, because there's a lot of that, but also the societal benefits. What about your first responders? How are they going to benefit from this technology? And then we roll it up, right? So that's, AUVSI is a unique organization in that we have organizational members as well as individual members, and they're all welcome, right? That's why we have chapters. We've got more and more of those that are spawning around this idea of a remote pilots council to specifically foster that kind of a local conversation.
The amount of work ahead of you is staggering, but one of the areas that I think has the potential to be the most problematic long term is the public perception of what's happening with unmanned technology. From somebody who reads the news every day and writes the news every day, there's no question in my mind that society is changing, and changing for the better in so many ways. I have my whole family outside of me is in medicine, and they are salivating at what they're going to be able to do down the line in regards to being able to supply an accident scene, or for that matter to get something from one hospital to another, or for that matter a friend of mine who's a combat medic, and the stuff they're talking about right now is beyond belief, especially when they're flying unmanned K-Maxes around right now that can basically take a whole bunch of troops at one time.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary idea, but the public perception is still really cautious and at times somewhat destructive.
But we have that with virtually every technology you can name.
Yeah.
From the automobile on forward, and if we go back further than that. This industry, I think our biggest challenge is it can scale so quickly. Right? That's really the piece that makes it somewhat more unique than some of the predicates that we have out there that we've learned from in the past. There's demand. Right? There's a very interesting meeting 2 weeks ago right here in Dallas of Uber Elevate, where they're talking about electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that you and I can climb in and autonomously fly us through a corridor to get from point A to point B. A corridor that's really congested on the ground. Who doesn't like this idea? So, and frankly, they've won me over with the partners that they've got, and the fact that electric motors are very reliable, and they have multiple things. But that is something that it took me a second to wrap my head around that. I had to sit through 3 days, and some of the presentations were highly, highly technical.
But you came out a believer, didn't you?
I came out a believer. And you know what? It's a simple extension of the things that are going on in this hall right behind us. And it's converging with a lot of other things that, frankly, I think are going to revolutionize the way we move people and goods generally, and it's going to revolutionize aviation over time.
One of the things I learned working with XPRIZE for a decade plus was that ultimately, when you looked at the big picture, there was no downside to disruption. That things were going to change anyway, but the most disruptive technologies ultimately produce the greatest result from a number of standpoints. Our world will change as a result of unmanned. Where do you see now AUVSI's mission changing or being shaped as you embrace what's going to be the most disruptive technologies going into the future?
Well, we're convener. We get, that's really what this event is. We convene people from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different technology areas of expertise come together and think about not just what does that vision look like, but how do we make it practical, how do we make it sustainable, how do we make it economically viable, right? And so it's, last year we had John Chambers here. 2 years ago it was Jeff Bezos. Now we've got Brian Krzanich talking about, data is the new oil. It's people respond to that. It galvanizes the entire community. We have the great privilege at AUVSI of convening that, right? And then figuring out, all right, now how do we break that down into bite-sized pieces, rack it, stack it, make sure we're handling the priorities in the right way. We didn't have identification, in the right sequence for drones. We got a lot of people flying out there, an increasing number of drones flying out there that are that are anonymous. That's not going to work, right? That's creating pushback from people who we want to actually embrace this technology. So, okay, let's go to work on that. AUVSI, at the request of the FAA, requested white papers for identification. 40 to 50 showed up inside of 2 weeks.
Wow.
Some of them, really sharp ideas, not surprisingly. So, that's the role that we'll continue to play. How it looks 5 years from now, I don't entertain the conceit that I'm smart enough to know that.
About the time you make a guess, the future will prove you wrong, and it'll be even more than you expected.
We're just going to keep evolving. It's stay on your toes and try and keep up.
And finally, walked into the show, been here setting up for a couple of days and watching this floor come to life this morning. Been to a number of the previous expositions between Orlando and Atlanta and New Orleans and so forth. This is a big show. It's a bigger show even than last year, and it's not only perceptibly or measurably, it feels that way. Yeah. What's happening there?
Well, it's the expansion. The show used to be military. It was a military foundation, and it's expanded to the commercial side, and there are other elements as well. I mentioned counter already, but just identification, tracking, detection, all these types of things are coming in the mix. So that's what we're seeing. We actually replace a high number of people at this show every year. We have a high number of new people that come to this show. And I think that has been a function of the early stage for many of the uses of the technology. But I think if you think this is big, I think we're now on an accelerated growth curve where we're going to be even more limited about in terms of where we can stage this event, which is a good problem to have, frankly. And
Denver next year?
To have it. Denver is next year. That's correct.
It's a great location.
It's going to be fun. There's a lot of flying going on in Colorado, just like here in Texas. So, but hey, let's get through Texas first and make sure we squeeze all the juice out of this particular orange.
Final question for anybody out there who's curious about the unmanned community: how do they reach out to AUVSI, and how can they participate?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. There's AUVSI.org, of course, and we have the foundation as well. I'm going to speak specifically to the younger people. We've got RoboNation.org, which is run by my colleague, my predecessor once removed, Earl Davidson. Does a great job with that, the competitions that they have. So that's folks that are coming up that are interested in robotics generally. In all the different domains, we have competitions and a lot of really engaging information. And then we've got Know Before You Fly, which is a project that we did in partnership with the Academy of Model Aeronautics and the FAA. So, and it now has 100 partners, which is great because we're getting that word out increasingly through all kinds of channels. So lots of different ways to reach out, or you can just write me, bwynne@auvsi.org.
There you go. Want to reach the boss, that's the way to do it. Brian, we really appreciate your time here.
Glad you're here.
Live at XPONENTIal 2017. We're going to take a short break. Earl Lawrence from the FAA will be joining us. We're looking forward to putting him on the hot seat here and finding out what the FAA has in their plans for us for the future. So we'll be right back in just a few moments. We are live at XPONENTIal 2017 at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in beautiful downtown Dallas, Texas. All right, you can't get rid of us that easily. We are live from XPONENTIAL 2017 with the FAA's Earl Lawrence. So, hot seat time. Earl, what's happening at the FAA these days in regards to the unmanned community? What are the hot ticket items?
Well, I think the big hot ticket item is just the actual implementation and making real the Part 107 rule and just everything that means. It was hard to imagine. I was sitting here realizing that this time last year we didn't have a Part 107 rule, and now we do, and we've got close to 50,000 registered pilots now, registered licensed pilots. They're PIC, and it's just an exciting difference. And now it's all about making their dreams come true and being able to support all those operations.
It was interesting. The industry looked at the FAA for the last couple of years as, okay, sooner or later they've really got to jump in. And there was a tremendous amount of fear and trepidation about when and how that was going to occur. But to be perfectly honest, while nobody, quote unquote, wants to be regulated, the rollout so far has been beyond expectation. You guys are doing good, which just scares us all to death because, there used to be this combative relationship, and all of a sudden there's not only cooperation, but there's a synergy here that we haven't seen before, and what appears to be a culture shift a bit at the FAA under Mike's leadership. Michael Huerta's definitely done what he promised to do a couple of years ago, and we were kind of all at the time going, yeah, sure, but yeah, sure is yeah, real.
No, you use the key word that I love, and that's collaboration. And really that's been the key to successfully integrating any new activity into our national airspace system or anywhere else. If we don't do it collaboratively, it'll slow things down. And so we rely on the industry, and as we always say, it's a shared accountability. What is FAA focused on? Safety. But who achieves that safety? The people who are flying the machines, the people who are operating them, who are building them, who are maintaining them. And that collaboration is showing, and it's expanding, and now we have so many people helping us with the Drone Advisory Committee, the Unmanned Aircraft Safety Committee. We've got a couple more ARCs we're looking at launching here soon.
The scary part is we're really working together, aren't we?
That's right, it is.
What happened?
What happened? Well, we want to get things done.
Yeah.
And we want to do it, we all want to do it safely. And, a new industry kind of prompts us all because we're all excited about all the possibilities that we're seeing here.
Well, one of the things, talking to Brian a little while ago, I said one of the things I got out of my X-Prize experience was that ultimately, when you looked at the long picture, there was no downside to disruption because change was going to happen. The question is how it was going to happen, and ultimately trying to steer it all in the right direction, or at least in a smoother direction than we've seen some rollouts of some types of technology. Right now, unmanned is not just the latest new technology, it is a society changer. It's a world game changer. And to a certain extent, the job that the FAA has right now is no longer regulate an environment, but it is to build and collaborate on a whole new future.
You mentioned its effect on society. And that goes with our safety mission too. A lot of people ask me, well, when is safe enough? Well, society decides what's safe enough, and that's constantly changing, and the expectation of us be constantly moving that safety line forward and introducing new products and safety equipment is all part of that. And as you said, how do we build, this is our true challenge, how do we build a regulatory framework that supports this innovation, that supports safety advancing at a constant rate while not locking us down? We just rewrote Part 23 here, and we're all excited about it, but why? That rule had gathered over time specific solutions. We're trying to avoid mandating a specific solution, but finding that way to say, if you do this, you can do this operation safely, and regardless of what technology you're using, it'll be good and accepted.
Well, one of the most exciting things, and especially when you bring up Part 23, it was more than, okay, let's update the regulations. It was, let's change the culture.
Yes.
And the part that's particularly enticing about that is it appears to be going from one end of the FAA to the other. I mean, it's not just one section or whatever. It seems to be pretty pervasive.
It really is. But I like to point out, it's not a brand new transition. This has been going on for decades. The one that I always
But it
think,
sure hit its stride in the last couple of years.
well, thank you, Michael. As you mentioned, we have great leadership that's really been driving us to embrace these changes and this culture. We've got flight standards reorganizing with that culture. There's just so much going on in the agency that says this is the right way to achieve safety, and I keep coming back to that because that's what's important to us. And we're there as that public regulator to protect safety, not to stop innovation. And in fact, one of the big struggles we are is how can we facilitate new things coming forward. I've seen it around the hall here today. It is so neat. I made a comment. We were taking a quick tour this morning before the administrator gets here, and we're going to show him some key things. I was noticing how people are building their technologies around the limited regulations we already have now, but they're keeping that in mind as far as how they might operate over people and what are the kind of things that, so safety culture is getting integrated into them, which helps us not have to have a heavy touch or a very dictatorial touch on what the solutions are to maintain safety.
Well, let's talk about some of the specific issues that are on the agenda right now to the average commercial drone operator right now. Obviously, waivers and permissions are a big deal, and of course, to a certain extent, the problems that you have are a measure of the success you've had in the rollout.
Right.
Just, here it is, and all of a sudden, wow, we can do this, but at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure and resources that need to be built up around that. What's the state of it now, and what do you expect to happen over the next year or two in regards to that issue?
Well, you did highlight the thing. As I always say, it's the pace of change and the volume of operations that we haven't had to deal with before. In order to deal with that pace of change and that volume, we have to automate ourselves within the FAA as much as we can and add these computer tools. And so that really has been our focus. As you mentioned, airspace authorizations. We need to automate those. And you saw last week, we took one of our first steps of releasing the first group of maps that will be the basis for that automation in the future. And those maps will now come out on a 56-day cycle. They'll continue to improve. We'll have well over 900 of them by the end of the year. And the automation to go with it, you talked about how we're collaborating so much. We're only doing it because we are collaborating, because we're using our taxpayer money smartly. We're concentrating on what does the government have to provide. We have to provide that base information, and then we're sharing it with our industry partners who will provide those apps and those navigation equipment and all these other good things that, on our phones that we like. That's not our best skill set, but we need to provide them the basic information, and they can advance it even better. And this time next year, I hope you can get your airspace authorization on your iPhone sitting right here at XPONENTIal, and we'll be talking about that.
Outstanding. Well, that'd be a dream come true for a lot of folks. The other hot button issues for the moment are going to be a continued reliance or request for BVLOS, night ops, and then of course operations near or over populated areas, i.e. gatherings of people and so forth. What solutions look to be the most, have the most potential for the moment?
Well, certainly night ops is our number one waiver today. 68% of the waivers are to operate at night, and they're getting to be fairly common, and that's helping educate our rulemaking activities. So now that we know what are the normal requirements, we're looking forward to updating on our next rulemaking package, night operations, so you don't have to apply for the waiver. But those are pretty straightforward in achieving today. So then you mentioned operations over people. I think the ARC gave us great information. We had a couple weeks ago the release from our Center of Excellence of the data package that can help improve that even more. So they gave us a whole new study that helps us understand not just the physics of real drones, not just the physics numbers, but actually real drones hitting people, getting that data and influencing what our rulemaking package will be going forward. Because we're looking forward to supporting that. On beyond line of sight, we've got great operations going on with the waivers now. I know it's not across the country, but I don't think sitting here last year we would realize it would be a standard issuance waiver to do a couple of miles square of a farm field. That Precision Hawk would be doing that, and they would then share that with everyone else, which they did at the FAA symposium, and said, here's how we did it. You can copy it and do the same thing, and we can cover thousands of acres of land on every flight. We're getting there. It's step by step. As we know, complicated airspace is complicated, but we need to make being safe in that easy, and that's what we're concentrating on.
What can we look forward to hearing from the FAA for the foreseeable future outside of what we've discussed? Anything on the horizon that we need to keep an eye out for? Just between you and I, of course.
Yeah, I mean, between me and you and our audience out there. Those folks out there.
Ignore the people behind the camera.
Yes, ignore the people behind the camera. We're going to be continuing, as was mentioned by the administrator at the symposium, we're focusing on ID and tracking technologies. We have a congressional mandate in that area to focus on ID and tracking efforts, and that'll be a big focus this summer. As we've learned, we worked with AUVSI and we worked with MITRE Corporation. We did a call for papers a few months ago for technologies for IDing. I mean, we got well over 40 solutions, and as I was explaining to some of the congressional staffers we work with and others that ask about this, is I don't have a lack of solutions. The industry has a tremendous amount of great things that'll work. It's how do we develop a framework that doesn't necessarily pick one but allows them to operate. So that's our big challenge, ID and tracking, and that once that's in place, that opens up beyond line of sight, makes it a little bit easier. It makes our law enforcement partners a little bit more comfortable. And there's just a lot of things that will come from that once we standardize those type of operations. So I see that as the big challenge for us this summer.
Well, I'll tell you what, it'll be interesting watching what happens, and of course, writing about what happens for Aero-News. We'll be looking forward to following up with you as time goes on. I assume we'll see you at Oshkosh?
Absolutely. I'll be there on vacation.
Oshkosh is a vacation.
Never heard of that, huh?
Man, honest to God, I think the last one, I was 16 years old. It was my first one. It's the only one I can legitimately call a vacation. After that, I started writing and everything else, and Oshkosh has just become this yearly trek and this only place in the world I could possibly be.
Yes.
The one thing you want to know, whenever Oshkosh is, I'm there.
Yeah, this will be 31 years in a row for me. So.
Yeah, just you, I, and a couple 100,000 of our closest friends.
That's right.
There we go. Earl, as always, we thank so much for your time. And I got to tell you, as somebody who's had a whole lot of fun pointing out the issues with the FAA over the years, this administration and this group has really, I think, exceeded our expectations in a lot of ways, and you have no idea how much that hurts me to say it.
I don't think that hurts you. I think you love it. So thank
Actually,
you.
I do, and I thank you much. Alrighty, folks, we're going to be taking a commercial break. We've got some phenomenal guests lined up for the rest of the day. We've got almost a little bit over 2 hours more in programming. So if you don't mind, we are live from XPONENTIAL 2017 at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in beautiful downtown Dallas, Texas. Home of barbecue, which we sampled a bit last night. Some pretty good stuff, and I think we're off for sushi later, so we shall see, and we'll be reporting on that in the morning and let you know how the Dallas nightlife is proceeding. In the meantime, take a break, see you in a few minutes. We are live from XPONENTIAL 2017. This is Aero-News.
Aero-News Network's coverage of AUVSI's XPONENTIAL 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Let Patrick Neal and Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonex Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twinjet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonexaerospace.com.
Continental Motors Group. Manned and unmanned, Continental has been a pivotal part of aviation and aerospace history and wants to be a part of your mission. Gas or diesel, certified or experimental, Continental is investing in your future. www.continentalmotors.aero.
Alrighty folks, we are back live from the XPONENTIAL 2017 convention floor. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount going on, but we've spent some time with Brian Wynne, the boss for AUVSI and FAA's Earl. Let's start talking about some implementations. We're pleased to host Mark Kegelars from Yunafly. Mark, what are you doing at AUVSI this year? What do you got to show?
Well, we are a software company from Europe. We are the leading software provider for the UTM software, and we want to show that to the American market. Obviously, we've been very successful in Europe, and this time for us, we've taken the show here to launch ourselves in the American market.
What differences do you see or have you observed so far as you've transitioned from a European market to an American market?
There's big differences. In Europe, we have a very difficult playing field, if you like. We have a lot of countries which each have their own legislation. So if you want to fly in Europe, to try and understand what legislation you have to adhere to, that's a very difficult thing. Whereas in the States, you have one FAA, one set of rules. To me, as a European, that seems a bit easier to do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So talk about the solution that you're providing in regards to Yunafly. How do you approach this? What technologies are implemented?
Okay. The reason why we are successful in Europe is that we've looked very hard at all of the different stakeholders that would be affected by a UTM system and are affected by drones. Obviously, first of all, you have the regulator that has defined a number of rules, and he really would like everyone to follow those rules. But the regulator, everyone thinks of the national regulator, but there are other regulators as well. You have the state regulator, or even the town regulator or the sheriff that wants to define where drones can fly, yes or no. We have the air traffic control organizations that may or may not want to manage the drones, but the existing ATM organizations, they manage manned aviation, and maybe they would want to know where the drones are, and maybe they have information that are useful for drone operators. Then you have the drone operators themselves, the poor end user that ends up buying a drone in a shop. Where can he fly? Where can he not fly? And then the professional drone user that wants to send a flight plan to the authorities and expects the authorities to approve that. We also have applications for system houses that want to have UTM functionality in their environment. And last but not least, police forces. A problem that is popping up all over the world is that if there's an accident site somewhere, police forces would like to be able to say, well, that piece of airspace where the accident is, we would like to close it down for a while because we don't want to have 20 different drones taking photographs over there. So we built around a big database with lots of information in it. We've built a bunch of applications for that. So it really is a web-based application with lots of information in it. We have airspace information, legislation information, obstacle information, weather and so forth, and we use that information to build applications for all of the different types of stakeholders.
Can you run me through some case scenarios with different types of operators and not only how they would utilize your services, but ultimately how they take UTM technologies and implement them in their business structure.
A use case. You're typically talking about a professional drone user. Typically, he would have a flight planning application. He creates a flight path for him to do a certain mission. Now comes the problem, okay, can I execute this mission legally, yea or nay? Through our API, he can send that information into our system, and we can tell him, yes, we're looking at all of the regulations, we're looking at all the parameters, say yes, you can do it safely, yes or no. Now, if his drones are equipped with tracking devices or ADS-B, we can actually track the drones and give that information to the air traffic control, so that air traffic control knows where the drones are. We can do conflict detection, conflict resolutions for that, so that the drone operator can be assured that he's flying his drones very safely in a very safe environment.
What brought you to this type of technology? There are so many people out here with so many different missions. Sometimes the backstory is interesting. What idea drove them to attack this aspect of the issue? And more important, where do they see their company, their mission going in the future, especially in an industry that, by all intents and purposes, is exploding?
Yeah, the idea of doing this, actually we started in 2012. The founders of the company are air traffic controllers and pilots.
Okay, so that explains so much right there.
And then they saw the problem coming and said, we need to make, they saw that they could not use the existing air traffic management system for drones. It's a different public and there's so many more drones than airplanes. So they realized we have to make something else. And that's what we did. And it's an award-winning product, extremely successful. It's now so successful that we are almost beyond the development phase. Yeah, we're still development. We are in the implementation phase. Mm-hmm. For instance, the ANSP in Germany, the Deutsche Flugsicherung, have contracted with us to build a national unmanned traffic management system. We're doing the same for Denmark as well. And there are several European research programs that we are involved in, but we are already in an implementation phase where I see that many of the other, let's say, would-be companies are not yet. The vision of our company is that the UTM industry is a very young industry. Not a lot of companies are doing this. But the companies that are doing this, we are all building an environment where in a few years' time it will be possible to do highly automated air traffic management for a large number of devices that are flying in very difficult airspace. If you think about it, if you can do that for unmanned aviation, you sure as hell can do that for manned aviation. So the
bigger picture.
The bigger picture. So the nature of air traffic management will change over the next few years, and the industry that's driving this is this industry.
Well, it has to change. There's no question. If you look at the projections, the percentage of manned to unmanned is going to flip-flop dramatically.
Oh yeah, it's already flip-flop.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of targets that you have to manage, it's already a lot more drones flying about than manned aircraft.
At the same time, ultimately, if the system is designed properly, managing the unmanned traffic should, by most scales, be easier in the long run. For no other reason than, let's face it, the mission is going to be planned, it's going to be spec'd, it's going to be approved, and off it goes. Whereas manned has a tendency to have, well, literally a mind of its own.
Yeah, that's true. The drone world, the unmanned world, will be highly automated, will be very, very safe. A manned pilot can still take his own decisions. Yeah.
So in attacking the American market, which, let's face it, the American market's fairly parochial, so you have to deal with that issue, just the not invented here aspect of it.
Yeah.
Are you finding any surprises right now as you're attacking it, and more important, where are its greatest opportunities for a company like yours?
I've not encountered the not invented here syndrome yet.
Excellent.
But it may come. That has a lot to do, I think, with the technology that we have is quite advanced. But one of the things that we've done over the last few months, we actually signed a contract with Thales. They're bringing out a UTM product which is largely based on our technology.
Sharp company.
Yeah.
Very sharp company.
Yeah. So we see that there's a big opportunity there in associating ourselves with a company of the size of Thales. Yeah.
Okay. For those in the audience that are looking for the kind of solutions in the UTM category that you present, how do they reach out to you? How can they get more information on the services you're providing?
Just go to our website, Yunafly.io. There's not .com, it's Yunafly.io. There's a big difference. There's a lot of information on the website. Go to the website, send us an email, and we'll respond to that very, very quickly.
Excellent. And finally, you're here at AUVSI 2017. What are you noticing? What are your impressions of the show and this industry coming together in one place like this?
I'm extremely impressed with this show. I travel a lot. I travel all over the world. This is probably the largest UAV show in the world. So that in itself, a concentration like this of these types of technology companies is quite impressive. So I'm very pleased to be here. I think if I can't make it here, I cannot make it anywhere.
I've heard that line before.
Yes.
Mark, we thank you so much for your time and for joining us with Aero-News live coverage of XPONENTIAL 2017. We're going to take a short break. We've got a number of other guests lined up. We're going to be talking about a number of subjects as we go forward throughout the day. So we are live once again, XPONENTIAL 2017 from the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. Be back with you in just a few moments. Clear. right, once again, you don't get rid of me so easily. We are back. Time to talk to H3 Dynamics, Tom Remar. We are about getting through the first hour of 3 hours of live programming here from XPONENTIAL 2017. Tom, first of all, tell me, who's H3 Dynamics?
Thanks for asking, Jim. Thank you for having me here as well. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to speak. So H3 Dynamics is a group of technologies split into 3 different groups, hence the H3. So we've got Horizon Energy Systems. We do lightweight fuel cells for unmanned aircraft. It comes in 200 watt, 500 watt, 1 kilowatt is our standard off the shelf. We do things upwards of 3 kilowatts. Our second group is Horizon Unmanned, HUS, Unmanned Systems, and that's basically the drone box. That's really what we're pushing here at the show today. Then the third group is the software that supports our Unmanned Systems group, HAS, which is our Awareness Systems group. We are located, headquartered in Singapore. We have offices in Austin and Paris, so we're a global team.
So in other words, you got one job wasn't enough for you, you had to go out and do 3.
We had to go off and do 3 because it just wasn't enough. We're bored.
What do you see right now walking the floor of AUVSI? It's only been open a couple hours, but what do you see as the potential for your company? What here is what you're looking to push forward the most? What do you want people to see and know about H3?
Great question. So this is our second year here. Last year was our first year, and it went very well for us. Heck of a show last year. Literally from the first day before the show even began till 30 minutes after the show ended, we had a line at our booth, so it was very, very good. That's why we came back this year. It is terrible, especially for a small up-and-coming technology company. It was very, very good for us. To answer your question, for us it's about client engagement. It's about revisiting the people that visited us last year, some of them on the left side of the adopter curve, others are laggards like we talked about this morning, but nonetheless it's engaging our clients, potential clients, and understanding what their needs are and having them having an opportunity to communicate our product updates, our technology updates, go-to-market updates across the channels that we're going into now.
And the most promising right now for your business model?
Security. When you look at our backlog is strong, it's healthy. The security application for autonomous drones. So let's talk about HUS, our Unmanned Systems group. So basically what we have is an autonomous drone box. So you could put this box on a rooftop, you could put it out in a cornfield. Say for example, you put it on the rooftop of this building here, you could program it from Yokosuka, Japan, days, times, waypoints to fly. It would fly that route, go back, transmit the information or the data live via 4G LTE, or download via Wi-Fi at the box, depending upon how you wanted to configure it, go back in the box and recharge. So basically, at the end of the day, we're a mobile sensor in support of IoT, and we just collect tons of data using that drone as a platform.
I would imagine the opening session and the data being the new oil is a really interesting mind shift and everything, because when I came into this industry, I started really getting involved in it. It was always, oh, look at what this airframe can do and what this technology can do and this sensor can do. And then everybody realized, well, what are they all doing? Well, collecting data. Well, what are they doing with it? And the answer was pretty profound. Everything. Every little thing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
For us, the process was the applications are endless for our drone box. But being a smaller organization, we had to focus on those opportunities that are going to generate the greatest market penetration and traction, and that is it's the security and the inspection both. So inspection includes methane gas detection, power line inspection, pipeline inspection. Again, we remove that barrier of one drone, one pilot. You don't even have to have a pilot. You need to have somebody Part 107 certified, at least in the US, to observe, but you don't have to physically fly it yourself.
How do you look at the state of the industry right now? We're in our first year of overt regulation. The FAA has finally decided that this is what they're going to do, and then of course in a number of international locations around the world they're either mimicking or for that matter even diverging in some ways from the example set here in the States, which is unusual, but it is what it is. But how do you evaluate how the industry at the moment is being both regulated as well as managed?
Well, I guess the short answer is, like my professor said in business school, it depends. I think regulatory is good from the FAA. Their job is to keep planes safe in the sky. As much as I travel I can definitely appreciate that for sure. From a commercial standpoint, it certainly inhibits the growth potential for the industry as a whole, but at least the FAA has put a process in place where people can apply and be considered for exemptions to the standard Part 107 rules. So I think the regulatory piece does need to move a little bit quicker to keep up with the commercial side, or the commercial side will figure out a way to work around that.
What surprises you about your interfacing with this industry right now?
What surprises me?
Yeah, any surprises or anything that is not what you expected?
Actually, no. It's interesting. During the keynote speaker this morning, I went through the innovation curve and the adopter curve both, and we pretty much line up with the sentiment of everybody else. 51% was number 2 on the innovation curve, and we're pretty consistent with that. We work very hard to find where those innovators are, not even early adopters, where those innovators are across a very strong backlog. And for us, it's getting those early wins so everybody else can feel it's more safe to jump in and adopt this technology. The metaphor I like to use, a bunch of kids are standing on a cliffside next to a lake, and they're all scared to jump in. But once the first kid goes, the rest of them go.
There you go.
And we're focusing on a few small, very focused and strategic wins with our partnerships. Our go-to-market plan includes, we have a strong relationship with the Watson IoT group at IBM.
Okay.
We're a certified Intel.
No small potatoes there.
No small potatoes there at all. They're a great partner, great brand to have in our pocket because we're virtually an unknown brand, but we're trying to change that. We're a certified Intel IoT partner as well. We're working with Ricoh, the company out of Japan, as our service arm for deploying the drone box. And we have some pretty strategic discussions with Verizon as well.
Can a startup now still survive in this industry?
Again, I would say it depends. The problem is when you go to market, if you have a technology that you think is really cool, but there's not a need for it, you're in trouble. But if you find a need, develop a technology and fill it, those are the fundamentals to high growth business.
Do you have an example or a case study you might put forth to explain to people just where you fit into this industry?
An example. So let's take real world current events right now. So if you listen to C-SPAN or Fox News or CNN, a lot of discussion about not going with a traditional analog concrete and steel wall. Rather, there's discussions on leveraging technology, using drone technology, using cloud technology, something more scalable and current. How we fit into that is we're a force multiplier in this particular example for Border Patrol agents along the southern border and the northern both. You can deploy our drone, connect it, integrate it with other IoT sensors as a first responder, and provide Border Patrol agents with FPV, first-person view, of any activity along the border there. This includes daytime operations, nighttime operations, using FLIR technology, thermal technology. So we're very scalable, we're very affordable, and we're going to be around for a long, long time.
What are your impressions of the show here? You've been to one, that certainly helps you a little bit to absorb what's going on, but the tone, the excitement level, and let's face it, it's even bigger than last year, and last year was a big show.
Sure.
How do you feel about what you perceive out of the industry just from walking around as one of the participants right now?
Well, when I walked in yesterday to set up for the show, the most immediate qualitative impact was larger aircraft.
Yeah.
Last year, I would have to say foot traffic's about the same, the setup is about the same for us. There seems to be an increase in size of the aircraft that are being displayed here. That's my first reaction. It's we're halfway through the first day. Haven't had a chance to really walk around and talk with customers all morning. So
yeah, a number of our guests tomorrow are fielding a number of those airframes. There's some pretty exciting stuff out there from the standpoint of the amount of duty time that these things can pile up now.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking loiter times that are measured in days rather than hours. The ability to equip or switch out sensor packages in a matter of minutes, or for that matter, to carry multiple sensor packages so you've got multi-mission capability.
Right.
Pretty wild.
Pretty wild, right?
And the question is, where does it go from here?
Right. It's, in my opinion, it's more machine to machine. Right. As you see a lot of radio controls here, a lot of manual flying. We're pretty far ahead on the innovation curve in terms of autonomous flights and autonomous capabilities for the data collection of our drones. So that's kind of good and bad. That means we don't have a lot of competitors in this space, but again, we got to find on those innovators, those early adopters in the marketplace.
For folks who are interested in what you have to offer, how can they reach out to you?
Go to h3dynamics.com. That's a great place to capture additional information on our company and our products. We have an office in Austin as well, so if you're in the area, if you're here at the show, certainly stop by. We're at booth 141. Or you can email me at tom@3dynamics.com.
Outstanding. Tom, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on Aero-News, Aero TV, and of course with XPONENTIAL 2017. We're going to take a short break. I believe Patrick Neal, an aviation attorney and specifically about specializing in the drone law area, will be joining us in a moment. And then there's a whole list of others that Tom Patton will be working with later on this afternoon until I believe we're ending up about 3 o'clock. So in the meantime, live from XPONENTIAL 2017 at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. We'll take a break and be right back.
Thanks, Jim.
and welcome back to Exponential 2017. With any burgeoning industry, with any new climate shift, if you will, within a technology area, there comes social change, there comes regulatory change, there comes all kinds of changes. And of course, the law changes with it. I'm pleased to introduce Patrick Neal and Associates, a drone attorney.
Yes, sir.
And I would imagine, talk about the Wild West, legally speaking.
It is truly a Wild West. If you think about it, Part 107 was only adopted less than a year ago. So the government hasn't even issued a full set of regulations on it. The FAA is trying to figure out what to do with it. The industry is trying to figure out what to do with it. And the whole world is really trying to figure out what to do with all these little things flying around, making a lot of noise and running into houses. And so I think where we're at now is truly a Wild West. The adoption of case law, which is normally what us lawyers rely on, is almost non-existent. I mean, the only real case law on navigation easements and things like that goes back to the 1950s with the Cosby case. I mean, so we're really looking at this all being a whole brave new world.
I would imagine that is both a tremendous opportunity as well as a total nightmare.
It is both of those things. It's a great opportunity because it gives a lawyer an opportunity to really create from whole cloth almost a body of law. The problem is lawyers are used to building on top of old bodies of law, and we don't have that body of law to build on. And so what we're doing is having to rely on old principles. One of the big areas that I've discussed with clients and people here at the show and everything else is, what do we do about liability issues? Who really has the liability, and what do you need to do to protect yourself from that liability? And those are the big issues that I think the commercial drone operator needs to look at. Not just are they operating under the FAA rules and regs, but are they operating under local regs, because localities and states are starting to pass regs? And then on top of that, are you operating in an industry prudent manner so that if you do get sued, you have a defense against it? And then finally on top of that, do you have the appropriate insurance necessary so that if you do get sued, you've got somebody else to help pay for the defense?
Ouch. A lot of things to consider. Now, you're a pilot as well, correct?
Yes, I am.
I would imagine coming from the manned arena to the unmanned arena brings along not just a good body of knowledge from the standpoint of the mistakes and such that aviation has made heretofore, but the tremendous change that's happening as aviation adjusts to a whole new realm of airframes in the system, especially those airframes that may be guided a half a world away.
Well, and that's one of the things that really is intriguing about the whole issue of the UAS and unmanned vehicles operating is that people likened it to the internet. But it's different because the internet was going on top of a new system. It was new pipelines being put in, for the internet, new pipes for the internet to flow through, new pipes for that data to flow through. Here we've got a new technology coming into a realm where people have been flying around in it since the Wright brothers. And so it really creates a very interesting interaction of how these things are going to go. The FAA sets up Class A, Class B, Class C airspace, but how do unmanned vehicles interact in those airspaces? And so it's just a real interesting body of law and litigation, frankly, that's going to come out of it. And I don't think really we have a good sense of where that's going to go.
So I am Joe, commercial drone operator. Business is starting to pick up. I see a lot of potential, but I also see the issues. What qualifies someone to be legal counsel in the drone community? What kind of expertise should they have? What kind of certifications are available? How do you pick a drone attorney?
There really, at this point, are no certified drone attorneys. There's no, the Florida Bar, for example, certifies trusts and estate lawyers and litigators. It doesn't certify drone lawyers. So really, I think what you look for in a drone lawyer is a variety of things. Someone who's familiar with the aviation environment, preferably somebody who's a pilot. someone who has a broad breadth of experience, because your drone law not only takes on regulatory issues, so you need somebody that understands administrative law, it takes on liability issues, so you need someone who understands the litigation and liability arena. It takes on land use issues, because if you think about it, someone being able to fly or not fly a drone in an area is a land use issue. And so, do you understand land use and where people can use it? Do you understand things like navigation easements? Do you understand what the 400-foot rule means? Those kinds of things. So you need somebody that has not just a narrow focus and background, but somebody that really can bring a holistic approach to the practice of drone law.
So basically you're taking all the fun out of it, aren't you?
Trying not to. We're really trying not to. We're trying to still make it something where it can be a free operation of drones, where people can take advantage of this Wild West and really tame it and make it into something that is hugely productive. Because if you look at some of the things, you're just walking around the show, and some of the amazing devices and systems that are out there now. This is going to be a big part of our lives for a long time, and so the sooner we figure out the best way to integrate it into our current system, the better off we're going to be.
There's no question that there's a major change coming, but to a certain extent what people don't realize is that the change is more than a technology issue or a transportation issue. This is a society that's going to change as a function of all things unmanned. You walk from one end to the other over the course of an hour or so, and you cannot get to the far end without a brain full of potential and a brain full of, oh my gosh, how are they going to solve this and how are they going to solve that? So the legal issues, I would imagine, for quite some time are really going to be difficult to at least identify first and then solve down the line. But most important down the line, they're going to probably evolve pretty rapidly.
I think it will evolve very rapidly because of the rapid growth of the industry. You know, similar to the way that the law of the internet, the law of electronic communications have developed quickly with, now there's statutes on electronic signatures and statutes on electronic transmission of documents and things like that. You're going to see more and more law develop on what you can do with your unmanned system, what you can do with an autonomous system, what kind of controls, what kind of safety measures do you need to have on them. The whole thing with being able to identify a drone without having to see its ID number, with having the transmitted ID numbers, those kinds of things are going to be very vital, I think, in moving forward, because if someone does something wrong, you're going to be able to find out who they are, not just, oh, it was that silver drone that flew over at 8 o'clock last night.
Well, what's interesting, we talked to, of course, Earl Lawrence from the FAA this morning, and then Brian Wynne, who is the leadership for AUVSI, and they're both, I would say, cautiously enthusiastic about the near term and very much enthusiastic about the long term. But there's certainly going to be a lot of growth in how this industry learns to interact with the rest of the world. And I can imagine that this is the area where the legal system is going to be a significant contributor to how this all gets done.
It really will. I think the legal system is going to help build the framework in which the whole industry can operate. I was at the discussion, the workshop with Earl and Mr. Wynne yesterday, and it was very interesting to listen to them speak about these kinds of issues. And I would predict that you see some of it here, but I think you're going to see more and more solution providers at the future shows. You're going to see people that are more and more focused on, here's how you navigate the system to be able to operate safely and commercially and make money at it. Because I think the other issue that's going to be a challenge is, with all these thousands of competitors out there, there's only a certain number that are going to be able to survive. So the monetization of it to allow people to survive is going to be another challenge.
What advice do you give to a new operator, and they're freshly licensed, they're either operating an airframe or utilizing, another one would be, of course, utilizing the services of a commercial drone operator. What are the immediate things that they need to resolve? What cautions do you have so that they can go out and be reasonably intelligent about operating in this Wild West we've been speaking about?
Well, if you're an operator, if you're a commercial operator, I think obviously, number one, make sure that you've got all your FAA regulations and certifications. Number two, make sure that you have operation manuals and checklists that meet industry standards. So that's a combination of the FAA checklists, your manufacturer's checklists for your airframes and so forth. So you want to make sure that you're operating in the most industry reasonable standards so that you're following best practices. You want to use checklists. We as pilots always learn checklists are your life. You know, you need to go through the checklist, because the one time you don't, that's the time you're going to forget to put the landing gear down and land it belly up. And so those are the kinds of things. You got to have manuals, you got to have operational procedures, you got to have checklists, got to have insurance, and you've got to do it that way every day. And then you have to have a management review process where you make sure that those things are done. So, you know, it's checklists and manuals are great, but unfortunately a lot of times they get put on a shelf. You have to have the management supervision, whether you're the operator or whether you're using a commercial drone operator as a third party, to make sure that they're doing things the right way all the time.
And I would assume, like the age-old adage of the person who represents themselves, that to a certain extent trying to do all this by yourselves is foolishness.
It's sort of like teaching yourself brain surgery. It doesn't work very well. You know, you don't want to learn it on your own. You're much better off to go somebody who is licensed and who is liable for the advice they give you. And you know, the good drone lawyers, the people who understand it, are going to research the topics, because every topic is different. And what I'm finding, the more I get into it, the more I advise clients, is I'm researching other areas of the law that apply and may have a bearing on their UAS operations. So it's really it's a continually evolving in my mind and in my practice.
This is going to be a big area of specialization in the future, isn't it?
I think it is, and the way you can tell is essentially all of the AmLaw 100 largest law firms are now setting up unmanned vehicle and unmanned systems operations and segments of their practice. So they must see something's kind of there, and I think I certainly do as well. That it's definitely something that's going to be a major area for the law going forward.
We touched on this before about the fact that there really isn't a certification program as yet as there would be for different kinds of law practices. For Joe or J&Q drone operator, what should they be looking for when they decide, oh, wait a second, I'm getting in over my head. I need to go over my manual and make sure I'm doing everything right. I need to make sure I'm properly insured. And most important, I need to make sure that the FAA isn't going to come and get me 10 minutes after I start operating. How do you, right now, search for that kind of specialization?
Really, it's very difficult for the John and Jane public. I think really what you need to look for is someone who has written in the industry, who has been starting to be a part of the industry, as part of the industry, who understands aviation and who understands all the other elements of the law that apply on the operation of unmanned vehicles.
You know, one of the things I've noted, I've talked to a number of people throughout the industry that are starting to specialize, and it's funny, we're actually seeing some breakout into specializations within the specializations. And I find it absolutely fascinating, especially when we've got ponderous issues like what is ultimately going to happen with the whole issue of federal preemption when you've got one person who's got a real estate bug up there, you know what, who started the whole Tom's River thing, which thankfully got stopped, but that was all a personality issue. And yet, had that been law, that would have been an absolute nightmare to deal with.
Well, and I think, and you hit on an issue that I think is going to be one of the biggest issues that we're going to see, is the whole issue of preemption and state and local regulation of drone operations, because that's where you're really going to end up with some issues, is who really controls the operation in a particular area.
My goodness. What have you learned from being here so far? What has impressed you about the industry now that you're here at AUVSI?
What's impressed me about the industry is the diversity of it. You've got everything from small operators and drone as a service providers to some of the largest companies in the world here, all participating in the show, all doing things in this industry. And I think it's really going to be a very, very interesting move forward for the whole world, frankly, as to how these operate. And some of the things that are going to be big issues are trans-border operations. You know, if you're doing a pipeline monitoring on the Texas-Mexico border,
There is a nightmare.
How do you deal with that one? You know, those are the kinds of things. I think we've just got more and more issues, even international law issues, that are going to come into play.
Well, I just can't imagine, as a pilot and somebody coming out of the test pilot community, I learned what I had to keep up with there. But the vagaries of the law, especially between all the different types of jurisdictions, as well as the practices involved, that just sounds like not a whole lot of fun to me.
It's very complex, because what you're getting now, and because of the issue on preemption, is you're getting municipalities passing drone regulations that you can be in one municipality and you're fine, you go a half a mile away and now you're violating somebody's law. How do you know that? How do you know those operations? Yeah, you've already gone in and got your 107 approval to operate in that area. But now what are you going to do when the city of whoever comes up and says, but you can't do that here? And so who gets to win? Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to see some serious preemption battles going on as time moves forward.
It needs to happen sooner or later, because if we thought the industry overall was a Wild West, the preemption issue alone is going to be, or has the potential to be, an unruly, absolutely unregulable nightmare.
Well, and the real issue is going to be, where does airspace start? That's the first question. You know, the FAA has control over airspace. Where does airspace really start, and where do you begin to create a navigation easement? So those are the real issues.
Well, and it also depends on the guy with a shotgun in Tennessee who thinks that his drone is looking through his daughter's window.
Exactly. Yep. So.
Oh man, you ever get one of those? I want to have the popcorn and watch that one.
It's going to be a fun case.
Oh goodness gracious, Patrick Neal, we appreciate you spending time with us. For those who are looking for information on legal practices within the drone community, how can they reach you?
They can go to my website, patrickneal.com, or call me at the office, 239-642-1485.
Patrick, appreciate your time. Folks, we are live from XPONENTIAL 2017 at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in downtown Dallas, Texas. We're going to take a commercial break for a little bit. I think Tom Patton will be taking over for the latter part of the program, so congratulations, you got rid of me. And we'll look forward to seeing you in a few minutes. Patrick, thank you, and we're out. We'll be back in just a few.
Aero-News Network's coverage of AUVSI's XPONENTIAL 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonix Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonixaerospace.com.
Let Patrick Neal and Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
And we're back live on Aero TV at XPONENTIAL with AUVSI, there we go, live at the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. I'm Tom Patton, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And I'm joined by Brad Hayden with Robotic Skies. And Brad, it seems like only a couple of months ago we were having a conversation at AEA, but one of the things that your company is doing is a repair station specifically for the unmanned market. Tell us a little bit about Robotic Skies.
Yeah, you bet, Tom, and thanks for having me. Robotic Skies is a network of Part 145 repair stations. We're actually at 150 plus now repair stations around the world. And what we do is we actually get them underneath this network and all the processes involved in working on UAS. We get them trained, we negotiate the rates with the customers, and then what we do is we're the primary interface, our company, with the customer. So what we're doing is we're opening up a brand new market space for these Part 145s. That's interesting, of course, in the Part 145 market, and we talked a lot about that at AEA. We brought in a bunch of new repair stations from the AEA show. Where it's applicable, though, to this UAS market is that we are providing them with a ready-to-rock, if you will, maintenance network that is global. We're in every major continent around the world, but we're also local. So their customers can actually take their high-end UAS into one of our facilities to get them repaired. It's important to note that we are OEM certified. We have 10 OEMs signed on now. Manufacturers for our services, some major fleet operators, and we only work on those UAS that we do have that training and that certification on. So we're also only working on the higher end UAS. Okay. These are systems that maybe start at $20,000 to $30,000, all the way up to, one of our customers actually has an optionally piloted Lancer Evolution, and so that's kind of the upper scale. That's maybe several $1 million for that airframe. What's interesting about the show this year is we're seeing a lot bigger airframes on the floor. I see us going from a lot of the smaller platforms to a lot of really big platforms. And all you have to do is walk the show floor to see them, both fixed wing and multi-rotors.
I've noticed that as well, and this is my first time to be at the XPONENTIAL show, but I am noticing a lot of the more industrial grade, as you said, fixed wing, the great big multi-rotor VTOL aircraft. Those kinds of things are really prevalent at this show. And when you talk about doing repair work on UAVs, how is that different from a manned aircraft? What are you finding are some of the unique challenges to working on an unmanned aircraft?
Generally, there is no real difference. It's an airframe. It's a different kind of airframe, but probably not a lot different, or the same kind of contrast you'd see maybe between a rotorcraft and a fixed wing. It has its own peculiarities. A rotorcraft vibration is a bigger issue. Those types of nuances. Also, oftentimes the aircraft can be carried into the Part 145, which you don't normally see because it's being driven in from a remote location. You may need to go on location to repair it. But again, we have got 7 decades in general aviation maintenance of working, inspecting, returning to service these types of aircraft. And what we're doing is, even though under Part 107 there are no continued airworthiness requirements, we're taking the best practices that we've learned in aviation, and that includes technician training to quality assurance to workflow, and we're applying that over into this new market space. And really that's the bottom line here, is that UAS is not a new industry. It's an evolving, growing, exciting market of the aerospace industry. And I think with this show in particular this year, we're starting to see a lot more of the aerospace elements coming into play in this new market.
What are some of those aerospace elements?
We're starting to see more, of course, on the regulation side, the regulatory side, a lot more regulatory involvement. Obviously, now that we've got 107 under our belts, everybody's wanting to go beyond line of sight. Everybody's wanting to have flights over people. That's going to require more capable aircraft. It could potentially require aircraft that have some type of assurance from a safety standpoint that it's airworthy. Whether that's going to be type certification or self-certification remains to be seen. But those are areas that we in aviation are very used to dealing with. And so as it starts to migrate that direction, we're going to start seeing a rise, if you will, of aviation infrastructure come into play, not just the manufacturers, but the avionics manufacturers, the avionics developers. Of course, us on the maintenance, we've been doing this now for a few years. We were a leader in that. But insurance, you know, and other types of aviation services that are going to make their way over into this new market.
One thing more and then I'll let you go because I know you've got to get back to work, but you said as we were chatting before we came live that you're noticing that the UAV industry is starting to look more like the aviation industry. How does that affect your business?
Well, that's very positive for our business. Again, you know, we're really predicated upon working on airframes that not just want maintenance or require maintenance because, you know, they have to per regulation or to get a waiver or whatever, but, you know, need it because they are high performance aircraft that need to be maintained on a regular basis to be effective. So obviously the bigger the airframe gets, the more local maintenance it's going to require, the more ongoing checks it's going to require to assure that the aircraft is capable of flight. And that's going to be very, very good for our business. And that's what we built this company for, was for these airframes as they get bigger, more complex, flying bigger, longer missions, integration into the national airspace. That's what we're here to provide, is that level of assurance of safety that we can bring from, again, our aviation best practices.
Well, Brad, it's always great to see you, and thanks very much for being a little patient, waiting around for a few minutes while we got going here, but I will let you get back to work. I really appreciate it. That's Brad
Thanks,
Hayden
Tom.
with Robotic Skies, and he mentioned the avionics piece of it. Something from that world is coming up in just a moment with Trig Avionics. I'm Tom Patton at the AUVSI Exponential Show at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center. I'll get that right eventually in Dallas, Texas. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are live on Aero TV at AUVSI Exponential at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. I think I finally got that right, John.
It's quite a tongue twister, isn't it, Tom?
It certainly is. And John is joining us from Trig, and this is like old home week. I spoke with Brad, and now I'm speaking with you, and it's just one of those things that we're getting all very comfortable together.
Absolutely,
I think.
absolutely.
So you have something new to tell us about here. because Trig Avionics, which has always been a company that has been focused on small, lightweight avionics, looked at the drone industry and said, there's something for us to do here. So what have you brought for us?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, we have an expertise in certified avionics, particularly around transponders with ADS-B technology, and we've been working for some years to show that our technology is totally compliant and ready for 2020. We're working internationally as well, and we're very excited at the show to have a new product called the TT26. Our pitch is that as UAS operators and manufacturers develop their products and technology, it's good that in the future they'll be able to adopt the best airspace surveillance standards that exist. And of course, if you want to fly into airspace that other aircraft are inhabiting, or if you want to operate in areas that are, away from ranges and over habitation, then inevitably you're going to have to end up adopting airspace standards. So the TT26 is our solution. In one single box, it provides a UAS operator the capacity to fit a transponder that's 1090 out, extended squitter. It's TSO C166B, which is the highest performance standard. It also has ADS-B, again 2020 compliant, so it's future-proof. It has a built-in altitude encoder, which is certified, and also a GPS, a C145 fully certified GPS. And those two devices in combination can be used to integrate with the autopilot, and so you can take altitude information and positional information and use that for navigation. So we think in that one package, it's a really, really practical solution which points the way towards the future.
And all of that in that little box?
Yep, all of that in one box. It can be installed in an avionics bay with other equipment. It doesn't need cooling. It runs very efficiently. And we also think the actual affordability of that package is something that is great. It can be retrofitted to existing platforms to bring them surveillance capabilities that I've just explained, or it can be used as a forward fit solution in new drones.
Now, I want people to be clear that this is not for the hobbyist quadcopter.
No. Our market is, I would say, serious UAS platforms, and I don't wish to be unkind to the lighter end of the market, but the reality is that the kind of applications that we see this being applied to are beyond visual line of sight for higher altitude operations. So the TT26 is actually certified for use up to 70,000 feet. So yeah, that's the space that we're moving towards.
Why is it important for drones to be able to be basically seen in that way? Because we're all talking about sense and avoid technology, we're talking about a lot of things that are trying to make this safer. Where does this device come in the safety spectrum to make it so that there can be integration into the national airspace?
Yeah. Obviously, see and avoid technology could include, I was talking to a guy last night from one of the universities here in America who was explaining radar technology, fascinating, and obviously he could see the sense of see and avoid technology for near field threats, wires or birds or other objects. However, what this device provides in combination is a complementary capability of being seen within the national airspace infrastructure. So other aircraft can actually see you. You're actually painted on their ADS-B in equipment. It just gives capability for commercial aircraft also to be aware of you in certain airspace. So yeah, it's pushing towards the future.
Where do you see the position right now towards integration into the national airspace? And how does a device like what you're offering today, how does that make that more, at least closer to reality?
Yeah. I suppose the thing to share there, Tom, is that in other parts of the world, in Europe, in Australia, our technology is already in use in a beyond visual line of sight capacity. And certainly the customers that we're working with are very, very pleased to have the credibility that comes from fitting Mode S and also ADS-B out. It also gives their operational capability, that edge, which helps in terms of getting a safety case together and proving that their operations meet the confidence of regulators and sort of local operational circumstances.
So is this your first foray into the unmanned space?
No, it's not. No, we've actually had radio products that we produce, and also our compact transponder line has also been used in UAS platforms for some time. But this is the first time that we can offer a solution that has 4 certified products in one box, which clearly has advantage in terms of weight and space.
Where do you see this kind of technology going, John? If you had a crystal ball, you could look into the future and say, here's what we ought to be working on in a general sense, and I don't want you to give away
Sure.
any company secrets, but in a general sense, where do you see this technology going a year, 2 year, 5 years down the road?
I think there will come a time where standardization of protocols will be common to GA, but also start to be reflected and adopted by UAS operators. And we know that airspace authorities and air traffic controllers appreciate the benefits of Mode S and ADS-B. So I think that's something that's not going away, and I think that's something that the industry will see as a boon and a benefit in time to come.
And you're saying, you said that that's already more widely accepted in Europe and Australia. The US is kind of lagging behind a little bit.
Well, I think the operational opportunities that those countries have given to be able to develop UAS technology has allowed beyond visual line of sight operations, not in a completely unfettered way, of course, but to the extent that they have been useful proving grounds for the way in which the technology is heading, allowing UAS platforms to operate with a little bit more freedom. I'm absolutely certain that this industry will push and the boundaries will change and things will develop and evolve in a very positive fashion.
Well, John, it's always great to talk with you. We really appreciate you stopping by and bringing us your latest technology, and we have a great time chatting with you, not only here, but at the booth as well. So
thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And we'll be coming right back in just a few minutes from the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas, live at AUVSI Exponential 2017. I'm Tom Patton. We'll be right back. And we're back. We are live at AUVSI Exponential 2017 at the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. I'm Tom Patton, and my next guest is David Walters. David is with a company called Consortique, and you're a fairly new company, at least here in the United States, and you've got some interesting things that are dealing with software development, which is your particular area of expertise. So let's just kind of start at the 30,000 foot view and tell us what you've been working on.
Okay, excellent. So Consortique, we've recently set up offices in Annapolis in Washington, and we obviously have offices over in the UK as well. Consortique provide ecosystems for businesses, so we enable them to have in-house drone operations. So we provide training, hardware and software support, and we're here for the first time at AUVSI. It's fantastic, great site, and we're here launching our new software product, CQNet.
And what is CQNet?
CQNet is a flight safety management system. It enables organizations to have an instant insight into their drone operations and where their pilots are flying in real time, and really take hold of everything from a safety point of view, from a ground to airspace level, but also for maintaining aircraft systems as well.
Now, when you talk about they can see where their aircraft are flying, are you talking about a company that has a few aircraft or a few drones that would be outside operating for any one of a number of different missions, and they can just see where those aircraft are?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a fire and rescue company in the UK that are currently using CQNet to manage their operations, and in real time they can deploy fire services to locations where there's a fire. The pilots have an app, so they get an alert, a bit like the old pager style in a way. They deploy a team on site, and in real time they can see where their drones are flying on location.
Without giving away company secrets, how do they do that?
We have a process through the application that they use. The pilots work through their pre-flight safety checklists, and once they are completed, that's what triggers a notification that one of their drones is about to fly.
And then, so what is the advantage of being able to track in real time where the aircraft are?
For multiple reasons, really. Again, from a safety point of view, we're able to detect where pilots are flying, where they should be flying. Is a mission being planned at that location? Is the pilot aware of the risk, the airspace, the ground-based risks in the area that he's flying at that time? And it enables safety managers and commercial managers within their organizations to kind of get a grip, let's say, on their drone operations that are currently going on.
You mentioned also that there's a flight planning aspect to it as well. Is there a way for the drone operator to tell his or her aircraft where they want it to go and then fly a specific mission?
Yeah, so how the system works at the moment, we have a mission template, so the pilot is able to select a location, or an operations team can pre-plan the mission for them. They select the area that the drone will be flying in, and it drills through the airspace data that's available that we have from the FAA, from the local CAA in the UK. It brings in advisories, so before the pilots are even on site, they know whether they can fly or not within that area. We're still working on the actual mission planning from a waypoint planning perspective at the moment, but we have that in development. I hope to have that available soon.
So it keeps track of things like where an area might be geo-fenced, it keeps track of temporary flight restrictions, those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Much like a pilot has to check his NOTAMs.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons we developed this system. The UK and the US, the way the airspace is managed and the regulations is slightly different. In the UK, we have quite a lot of work to go through, and we use multiple sources. Euro NOTAMs for NOTAM information, we're looking at NATS for airspace classification. To plan a mission, we look at maybe 5 or 6 websites to check the weather, again restricted airspaces, but now we have a one-stop shop system where a pilot can go and plan a mission all within one system and have all that information available to him.
Where do you see this as a safety factor? How can you help with integration into the national airspace, for instance, for commercial drones with a software system like yours? Is there a connection that begins to help make inroads into the integration into the NAS?
Yeah, absolutely. We've partnered with Altitude Angel They're quite a well-known airspace management for drones, let's say, data provider. They're already connected within the UTM infrastructure. It's still a work in progress, but we're able to
Heads?
yeah, that wasn't a drone.
No.
But we're able to help populate that UTM information, but also our pilots that are using our system are notified of hobby users using their free app that they have available operating in our area, because then there could be a conflict of radio transmissions, etc. But then also other commercial operators as well. So again, we're starting to feed back into that UTM. It's still under development, but I think as the development of UAS moves forward, the UTM is going to happen. It has to happen.
You said that Consortique was just recently moved to the U.S. and opened up a presence in Annapolis. What other businesses is Consortique in, other than the software development for this kind of drone operation?
So probably about 3 or 4 years ago, we started as a CAA training provider in the UK. We've been providing training now to probably 600-700 users a year within the UK, and the commercial operations back in the UK has just rocketed. It's absolutely gone through the roof. So we've had a core requirement to provide training, and as a CAA approved trainer, we can do that. We then started tailoring courses to specific markets. We have a media package, we have a construction package, and we have an emergency service package. So, for example, with the fire services, we train them how to use the system more effectively, how to set up the thermal cameras. So now we've moved to Annapolis, we're going to recreate that same structure in the States. Although there isn't a requirement at the moment from the FFA to say you need to have sat X, Y, and Z course, from an insurance point of view, there is a requirement, we believe, where a company is going to have to say, look, you need to set these standards to achieve X, Y, and Z to take on a commercial contract for BP, let's say, or for Shell. They have quite strict auditing processes, and you have to meet a certain level. So again, from a safety aspect, that's where we believe our training is going to come to play.
And from Annapolis, will you grow, you hope, at least regionally and then nationwide?
Yeah, I mean, the plan is East Coast first, and then to move across to the West Coast. But so far, it's exciting times.
When you look at how this industry has grown, and it's, I get the impression that it's grown much differently in the UK and in Europe than it has here in the United States. When you look at how this industry has grown, where do you see the UAV industry in a year or 5 years? Can anybody really look that far down the road as quickly as this technology changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the billion-dollar question. You know, I mean, the industry has just exploded even in the last 12 months. I started flying back in 2014, and I was operator number 457 in the UK. We're now in 2017, and there's over 4,500 registered commercial operators in the UK. You know, and that's a massive boom. So I think in the next year, it's only going to again increase. But I think also from a governing perspective, there's going to be more tighter controls and more responsibility also on the companies employing operators.
Well, David, thank you very much for taking some time to come over and talk with us about Consortique. It's and we wish you the best of luck. It sounds like it's really interesting software, and I hope to be able to stop over to the booth after a while and get a demonstration and see what it actually looks like. But we really appreciate you coming over and taking some time to talk with us.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are going to come right back in just a moment, but first we're going to take a quick time out and play a couple of commercials. We are live on Aero TV at the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas at AUVSI Exponential 2017. We'll be right back.
Aero-News Network's coverage of AUVSI's Exponential 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonex Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonexaerospace.com.
Let Patrick Neal and Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Welcome to the Aero-News Network's Airborne-Unmanned program, a news program covering all things unmanned in partnership with AUVSI, the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International, the world's largest nonprofit organization devoted exclusively to advancing the unmanned systems and robotics community, serving more than 7,500 members from government organizations, industry, and academia. The unmanned systems industry is growing rapidly by the hour, so it requires news coverage that can keep up. The partnership between AUVSI and Aero-News Network helps provide that coverage. Airborne-Unmanned is produced by the Aero-News Network, the first 24/7, 365 real-time online aviation news service, now entering its third decade of daily news production. ANN has produced more than 350,000 news stories, 7,000 podcasts, 3,000 Aero TV features, and just over 1,000 episodes of Airborne Unlimited, a daily aviation and aerospace news program expertly hosted by myself, Laura Hudson, and Christopher Odom, under the direction of Aero TV producer Nathan Cremasino. AUVSI President and CEO Brian Wynne explains that, quote, since it was founded in 1973, AUVSI has been dedicated to the advancement of the unmanned systems and robotics community. Today, the association remains committed to those founding principles by fostering the technical and commercial success of its members. Through this partnership with Aero-News Network to produce Airborne-Unmanned, AUVSI is expanding its reach to provide news and information about this growing and thriving industry. Airborne-Unmanned will complement our existing communications channels, including Unmanned Systems Magazine and the Daily E-Brief, to keep AUVSI's members and the entire community informed of the latest technology innovations, business transactions, and public policy that are supporting the safe deployment and implementation of unmanned systems throughout the world. Manufacturers, personnel, educators, and companies working in the unmanned vehicle sphere are encouraged to reach out to ANN in order to introduce themselves and learn more about the Airborne Unmanned effort by emailing jim@aero-news.net or calling our offices at 863-299-8680. Episodes of Airborne Unmanned may be most directly viewed via airborne-unmanned.net. We look forward to working with the entire AUVSI Unmanned community through our airborne programming.
And welcome back to Aero TV Live from the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas at AUVSI Exponential 2017. I'm Tom Patton, and I'm joined now by Arne Sharpe from FLIR, and we're going to talk a little bit about a tiny little aircraft with an infrared sensor in it and you've got it right here on the table. So Arne, first of all, thank you very much for joining us, and tell us what you've brought.
Oh, thank you very much. It's good to see you, Tom.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I come from originally a small Norwegian company called Prox Dynamics, and we have worked for some years to develop ultra small drones, or nano UAVs as we call them. And last year in November, December, we were actually acquired by FLIR Systems. So we become a part of the FLIR family now. It's a great company. We're still in the, let's call it, integration phase, but so far so good, and we're happy campers now as a part of FLIR, an American company. So back to, let's say, what we have here is we set out some years ago to produce the smallest operational UAV we could think of for professional use, i.e. for the military, law enforcement, not for commercial use. So for us it was very important to give what we would define as the dismounted squad, single operators, special operators, their own set of eyes, so that they could have increased situational awareness. Actually, so they could have a much better look what's going on around me. They needed a light system, a small system, which was easily deployable, and they didn't have to coordinate it with higher authorities just to check out something. So this is very much a system which gives them the ability to look down the street, look on the ridge, look at what's going on down there within a certain distance, let's say out to a kilometer or even beyond that, and bring them live stream video and still pictures back to the operator. So it's all about increase their safety and security, and hopefully also can have a look at something, observe something without being noticed. That is important with this system. And if you look at one of the sensors here, this is what we call the Black Hornet, which is the sensor, or the bird, as we call it. It's a small helicopter with day cameras in the nose. It has a rechargeable battery, GPS based, and with a classic helicopter construction. And it provides then, as I mentioned, the live stream video back to the operator, and still pictures in addition to that.
What goes into making such a small UAV? What are some of the challenges in miniaturizing all of those things that we see in the larger UAVs and larger aircraft into something this size?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. I would have loved to have some of the senior engineers with me on that, but I've been to many meetings with them, and of course when the whole sensor has a gross weight of 18 grams or 0.6 ounces, you end up that every little thing or function you want to have here, it is an enormous struggle with size and weight. I cannot remember I cannot imagine how many times we have talked to other companies who come to us with great products. It could be a part, it could be some sort of a capability we could introduce here. And when we look at the hardware, we say, okay, come back when you have reduced the weight with 90%. So it is a challenge, and it is, but we chose back in the days when, roughly 10 years ago, when we started up this, I was not a part of the company then, but when they started, they had a lot of discussions about which design to choose, because there are several. It could be a quad, it could be a different design, but we chose to have a traditional helicopter design. And one of the main features there is, of course, energy, the energy budget. Flying drones, there are many factors to take into consideration. Maybe one of the most important is the energy budget. How long can I fly? What can I achieve? How much power do I need for the various functions, the technical functions you have on board?
And so this requires enough energy to run one motor instead of four, and gives you more energy for all of the sensors and transmitting video back.
In fairness, I would say The helicopter design has certain advantages, as have also the quads. So at the end of the day, it is also a little bit of what is most important for you, where have you put most weight, to put it that way, what is priority number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you see here, we have put extreme focus on being able to make a light system. Many also in the military world and underestimate the sheer weight the soldier meet with all his equipment. So we have taken that into account and put every effort into not adding unnecessary weight to the soldier's load when he's out there.
Is another aspect of it perhaps that it's very difficult for an enemy to see, to detect, to know that it's there?
Yes. The combination of the form, the combination of the size, and of course also the sound signature. It is a very silent system. So I don't think it's written in the handbook, but I always say go low, go close, and be silent. That is a lot of the focus and the key criteria for this system.
Take us through and I'm searching for a word and it's not coming to me, but a standard mission that this aircraft might be used for.
Yeah, let's take a couple of examples. You are in a situation somewhere downrange, and it's 10 minutes until you are going and you're gonna go into a compound. You still don't know what's behind those dirt walls, those 10 feet high dirt walls. And you would like a last minute update on, are there any guards there? Are there any civilians there, children? How can we best avoid collateral damages? So it is safety both for our own forces, but it is also safety for whoever is in there, third-party civilians. Another typical example is somebody is shooting at you from a ridge some 100 yards away, and instead of sending folks in your own folks into harm's way, you can send out this, and within a couple of minutes you can identify who's up there, how many, is this a serious threat or is it something else? Do we need reinforcements? How do we deal with this one? So let's say we are going to, you can do reconnaissance, you can send it out in front of you and check out the main road, along the road. So it is really a useful tool which adds up to the safety of our own troops, but also it can help avoid casualties on the other side and especially collateral damages.
What are some of the civilian uses?
Up to now, we only sell this system to governments, i.e. we sell them to military and law enforcement. But we clearly see a relevance for law enforcement along many of the same lines as we see in the military. We could also see emergency organizations, let's say catastrophic conditions, and you have a need to send in a set of eyes and to have a quick look at something before you go in there. So we have had a lot of attention also and interest from everything from FEMA to other organizations which would come in, which would be relevant in case of some sort of a disaster or a natural catastrophe. But our main focus areas for this one now has been, since we started this, military and law enforcement.
And you mentioned that it's good for sending out in front and getting an idea of reconnaissance. How far can it fly generally? And I know you're not going to give away trade secrets, but is it a line of sight aircraft, and how far out in front of you can it go to send back reliable data?
It depends, of course, on the topography. It depends on wind. It depends on also, to a certain extent, on temperature. But we say normally it has a range of a mile, give or take, pending those factors I talked about. So for a squad level unit, whether it is a kilometer or a mile, that depends on the situation. But that is the capability we are talking about here. And also important here is that it also has a capability beyond visual line of sight, which also gives us the opportunity, or give the operator the opportunity to fly behind structures, behind trees, and behind other obstacles out there to check out what's going on there.
Does it require an operator, or can it operate autonomously?
No, as of today, there is an operator. It is a very simple system. That was also one of the key factors we put into this when we started. It should be very simple to operate. It should not demand an extended training period. But technology takes care of all those items needed to fly it. So from that perspective, it's also a very easy system to handle. What the future will bring in the coming years, that's of course up for a couple of the next events when we meet again.
And I'm sure we will. And I think we need to leave it there, Arnie. Thank you very much for stopping by and joining us and showing us your, with all the large UAVs that are in this hall, that's one that you can actually bring and put on the table, and we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
All right, and we are coming back in just a moment. We are live from the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas at AUVSI Exponential 2017. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're live on Aero TV at the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas at AUVSI Exponential 2017. I'm Tom Patton, and my guest is Chris Wheeler, and Chris is with Trimble Navigation. Trimble, I recall way back when, used to be a GPS company. Not so much anymore. So where is Trimble now, and why are you here at AUVSI?
Well,
Trimble's got a lot of different applications they do. The majority of them are based primarily on GNSS applications, but what we really do is we provide that precision location and orientation information into a lot of different applications. So if you think about our traditional verticals that we've been in, what we do is we do things such as geospatial, agricultural, construction control. Realistically, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're providing really precise information in regards to where the blade is for a bulldozer, where the piece of equipment is for automated agricultural control, or in geospatial, obviously, survey quality information. My group in specific, Integrated Technologies, and then one of our sister groups within Trimble, Applanix, are using that information to work with OEMs and ODMs in the UAV space in order to develop the basis for precision location information. Integrated Technologies specifically does the location information, while Applanix does the post-processing of information where you take visual information, process it for using for mapping and scanning type information or LiDAR applications.
So when you look at some of the aircraft that are here at AUVSI, how do you integrate what it is that you do with some of these aircraft? And I know there's a lot of interest in the agricultural market, for instance, for being able to precision track crops and do those things. So where does what it is that you do integrate in with the hardware?
So there's a couple different pieces that we do. When you think about it, a lot of applications, open field, lots of clear sky, you could use a very low level GPS chip, kind of typical like you'd see in your guidance for your car or in your phone. And you get 3-meter accuracy. You're not too worried about running into things. You're not worried about going too high, too low. But what ends up happening is for a lot of the applications for what we're trying to get to for tracking, you run into harsh environments where you may lose tracking. So you need a solution that's actually going to allow you to continue to have guidance when you're blocked. Thinking of something as simple as a tree or maybe a metal trailer that's out on the site that may have moved and caused interference, so you get multipathing. You also have some things that happen in regards to the actual applications. So if you think about something going out and taking a photograph, and I'm going to take a picture of a set of ground, let's say it's 100 acres. I may have to take 1,000 pictures to cover that 100 acres. What happens though is you can't just take one picture and then magically line those two pieces up together. You have an overlap. And when you're using things like that imprecise type of precision information, what happens is the information has to overlap quite a bit in order to get those visual reference points. That creates a couple things. One is a lot more data you have to gather in order to do it. Even though your flight time of your actual bird stays the same, the amount of time you have to have it up in the air overall is increased dramatically because that overlap creates it. If you have that information, you can actually include that into your solution. What you do is the overlap shrinks. And as the overlap shrinks, you get more coverage per flight. You get the same amount of flight time, but more coverage per flight. You can take less photos. You get a higher level of accuracy in your overall solution. And more importantly, when you're doing all that post-processing type application, you have all this geo-reference and geo-tagged information that's easier to navigate and put to use.
So take us through a common scenario. And I think you kind of just basically did that, but let's look at something a little bit more specific as to what it is that your software does.
Okay, so when you think about us, we still have a very specific hardware component of what we do today. So what we're really providing is the precision location information today through a hardware solution. So let's imagine that you're talking about kind of the future of autonomous cars.
Okay.
Right? I want to go and I want to drive my car. Well, today, if I were to try to do that with traditional GPS in your phone, I could get it down the middle of a road reasonably well, but you know how like you occasionally drive on a frontage road and the GPS jumps over to the frontage road? Well, the reality is because the accuracy is larger than my arms are right now in a lot of cases because of interference. What we're doing is using correction sources that are ground-based or terrestrial-based, and we're allowing to make that much more precise. So now we're actually moving to where we use satellite-based corrections. So we have local base stations, the satellites are sending that correction source to you. Well, now we're talking in centimeters. And so when you're talking centimeters, that puts you in a lot more precise location. If I have the known location of where I'm mounted on the car and I have 2 antennas, now I actually can very specifically put you into a spot and I can drive you through at 60 miles an hour through a safe location. Now there are real things that move. There's animals that might run across the road, birds that might come down out of the sky, other idiot drivers that might pull you over that might make you upset. So there's other sensors that you have to do. The secret is being able to get that precision information, because that provides a lot of information. I know exactly where I am. I can relay that information to a group of vehicles around me. Not only that, you see some of the technology now where we're passing things to the second car in front of us. Now I know exactly where I am. Well, not only are we doing that, we're doing IMU or MEMS, and we're getting the velocity, the vectors that are happening. I can actually transfer how fast I'm braking to the car 2 rows in front of me. Not only do you know where I am, but you know how quick I'm stopping. I get information about how quick my car can stop. A car has a wreck because there's a rainstorm that hit half a mile in front of us and the roads become slick. The cars now can automatically adjust because they're getting that information because we know exactly where we are too. The secret's going to be is not where we are and what the things we're doing today. It's that integration of the sensors along with that precision location for indoor-outdoor navigation. Because as soon as I go in a tunnel, everything changes. And that's some of the stuff that we're looking at of what type of sensor technology can we integrate into our precision location solution that allows you to navigate through tunnels. You drive out on I-70 out where we're from in Colorado, you got a 1.5 mile tunnel you're going through. You've got to have a solution that can continue to navigate for that time. And we've got some solutions that using those MEMS that allow for calibration for those type of applications, whether or not it be autonomous vehicles, a UAV that's flying under a tree or in kind of urban canyons of tall buildings that can take one solution, has that, goes out of coverage where it's no longer good and can continue to operate.
It's interesting because I was about to come back to the UAV part of it. When you talk about the ability to talk to the car in front of you, can you also then have that solution that talks to the other aircraft as well, so that your sense and avoid becomes, I know who you are, what you are, where you are, and I can stay away from you.
Yeah, one of the nice things about my group in particular is we are a portion of the supply chain for a lot of our partners. What happens is we have full solutions. I mean, our verticals sell full solutions. You see them in all those different industries. But what we can do is, if you've got your communications figured out, we don't need to do that. We can do just the precision location. That, quite honestly, is where we provide the most value. If you don't have your communications pulled out, we've got groups within Trimble that can actually help you with you or partner you with the right people in order to go do that, so we can put that information together. If you need software and post-processing, that's Planex's wheelhouse. That's where they can come in and provide the most value to you. And you can kind of pick and choose. And what we're trying to do is trying to help people accelerate their time into the market. And in the UAV space, that's great. One of the things that we're doing now that you may or not have heard of is we've actually come out with what's called soft GNSS. And so today we have the antenna and we have the board. What we've done was we've been able to take the code that actually resides on those boards and pull it out. And it actually can run on an Android-based platform. And so what happens is you no longer have to have that separate board. Well, it removes a lot of costs because most people already have an Android phone. Whether or not they're doing a survey, they're using an Android tablet to go out and do things. We're looking at the ability to integrate that into other solutions potentially, which is some things we can talk about. But at the end of the day, what that does is it reduces a lot of the weight for the UAV market, and it still at the same time provides you that centimeter type accuracy that you look at from an RTK type solution. It performs in those open sky environments where a lot of UAV happens, performs just as well as other RTK solutions.
Where does that then assist in the integration of UAVs into the national airspace?
So there's a couple things that it does. If you think about one, most people are running things off their tablets. So their tablet already has a lot of the mapping information that's in it, and they're keeping the smarts off their UAV and they're letting the tablet manage a lot of the smarts. Well, all that georeferencing stuff that's now relying on this less accurate GPS that's built into their phones or their tablets, we can replace that with really, really high accuracy precision information. Well, that starts to limit. So if I want to go and I want to do something that's close to a quarantined area, and right now I'm really flying 200 meters off because I'm just not sure, I can get a heck of a lot closer. If I want to operate a piece of autonomous robotic controlled equipment and there's a period of protected nature grasslands or something like that, well, instead of having to be 30 meters off, now I can be a meter off, or I can be even potentially closer, as long as I'm seeing the accuracy information come through. And what it does is it literally replaces that GPS engine in your tablet with our engine that allows you to actually run this higher accuracy information. And you're getting the information directly from the UAV, the drone, back to your tablet.
Well, Chris, it's fascinating, and I'd love to come by your booth and kind of see how get a little bit of a representation of it, but we are out of time. So
no problem.
I really appreciate you taking time to come over and speak with us about Trimble, and we hope to see a lot more of you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
We've got one more interview, and that's going to be with Christopher Casera with Analytic Graphics. That's coming up in just a moment here at AUVSI Exponential 2017 at the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. I'm Tom Patton. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back to AUVSI Exponential 2017. We're live on Aero TV at the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. It only took me about 3 or 4 tries to get that out of my mouth, Chris, without stumbling over it. So it's been one of those days. Chris Casera is joining me, and Chris, we're going to talk a little bit more, and we've been talking with a lot of people about integrating into the national airspace using software, and that's what your company does. Give us kind of the 30,000 foot overview of where you are.
I mean, the actual system is called UTM, so it's a UAV traffic management system. We got our experience through the space industry. We built a system called the ComSpoc, the Commercial Space Operations Center. And so what that does is it understands where all the satellites are, and it tries to deconflict their position in space and also make sure that the transmissions, their radio frequency interference is low and they don't jam each other. So based on our experience in the space business, we brought that to the drone business, and we're building a UAV traffic management system. And our goal is to be able to allow pilots to fly beyond line of sight. Right now it's all visual line of sight.
Right.
So Our strength is in the analysis that we provide to move people beyond line of sight.
What does it take to have the aircraft know and recognize where each other are, altitudes and those things, so that they can avoid running into one another or a manned aircraft?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's also a layered strategy. So, ultimately you'll have vehicles that can avoid other vehicles autonomously. And you heard this morning about Intel and their RealSense technology, which is pretty cool. So, but another layer of that is the UTM. The UTM takes in information from the operator itself. So the operator knows where their vehicle is better than anybody, and that interface between the operator and the UTM is what provides situational awareness over the entire system. So if you have a bunch of operators all with their own vehicles sending all that data into a common system, the UTM, the traffic management system, can just deconflict those traffic.
But when you're, and I'm imagining where you would have multiple drones operating on perhaps different platforms. Is there a way that what it is that you're doing integrates all of those different platforms and allows that deconfliction to happen?
Yeah, through the NASA effort. So it started with NASA Ames, and they had a UTM working group. The UTM working group established some ICDs that talked about how to do that in a standard way. So what we're doing is we're just implementing that ICD, a common ICD, within different control systems. So Mission Planner is an open source, commonly used system that we've interfaced with, and we'll be doing that for many other ground control systems as well. And hopefully people, when they build their ground control system, it implements that ICD so that any of those ground controllers can just seamlessly talk to the UTM. So once the UTM has the information, then inside of our system we'll figure out how to alert those operators when some issue is occurring.
So what does the drone operator have to connect into the UTM?
It has to have a ground control system that implements the ICD. So all he's doing is talking to the drone in real time, if it's a beyond line of sight type drone, and getting that positional information and sending it in at a predetermined rate. So it could be 1 position per second or 5 positions per second, something like that. But they have to implement either the interface with the UTM, or there has to be some sort of, we call them a puck, but something that sits on the drone that's sending that information into the system.
So there is additional hardware that's involved?
There could be. Our system, we don't have hardware right now that we're using. We're just using complete software interfaces. And we think that the data that comes from the ground control software, its actual telemetry link, is the best data that's available. That's what's being used to fly the drone.
So is that software loaded on the drone as well?
No, the software resides only in the ground control system. Okay. So, and the benefit of this is that it uses the internet to transmit the data. I don't necessarily have to have hardware to make this work. The operator already knows where its drone is, and it's going to send that information to the UTM.
Where do you see this expanding? How do you see what it is that you're doing growing beyond where you are right now?
Oh, lots of different ways. So, first of all, I think there's issues right now about drone identification. So what we're trying to learn with the government is how do we allow situational awareness to people that need it, like police officers that might be protecting an area, and they see a drone flying by and they want to know if that's a good operation or a bad operation. So the UTM itself gives those people that need to know whether that operation is good or bad. So that's one thing, and I think that the people that need that information need it in a mobile platform, right? So we collect it in a system, but giving that information back out in a way that they can easily use it. So in our company, we've built augmented reality capabilities where you could take your cell phone and put it up in the sky, and it will paint a picture of the drone in the background. And you could click on the drone and it would tell you who it is and what it's supposed to be doing. If it's not in the system, they're not cooperating, they might be a bad actor, and then you have to look into it more. So,
what kind of interaction have you had to have with the FAA in developing this software and implementing it on aircraft?
We're learning through NASA, who's an R&D arm of the FAA, and they really have authority to kind of work with the user community to build the system out. We're also a member of the Small UAV Coalition. We have regular meetings with the FAA to understand their concerns and help guide them in terms of the different data that they establish and how they present that data to the user community. So one thing that they came out recently was the rule to not fly drones over military bases. And so they pushed that information out to a website. We learned how to get that information and ingest it into the UTM. So now anybody that wants to fly a drone can understand how to stay away from restricted areas.
So is it sort of like geofencing on steroids in that sense?
In many ways it is geofencing, but what we're really trying to get down to is where can you fly, you know? I mean, the restricted areas should be small and we should understand where they are so that we know where we can go. One of the frustrations has been, well, we have to build something new to be able to go out and fly. And a premise of ours is to understand what infrastructure we currently have that can enable flight. You know? So if LTE is going to be used for command and control, where is LTE available for command and control? Let's not wait till the next technology comes out. Let's figure out what we can do with the current technology. Same thing with radar. If radar can see a general aviation aircraft already, well, maybe that's an area that drones should be permitted to fly.
But the radar would have a difficult time, I would think, seeing something as small as a drone.
If the drone itself is communicating with the UAV traffic management system, then I know where it is. So I can keep it out of the way of a general aviation aircraft. The general aviation aircraft pilot probably shouldn't even be bothered by the drone. I should be able to keep the drone out of his way.
So you mentioned that if LTE is what's being used for command and control, and it's pretty common knowledge that LTE is about to be supplanted by the next big thing in cellular data. Is your company nimble enough then to be able to take whatever is that next big thing and incorporate that into your command and control structure?
Yeah, there's two ways. So first of all, we're not commanding or controlling anything. We're just gathering information and doing deconfliction. Okay. So whatever technology people are using to get the data down from their drone, they just send that to us through the internet. But the secondary part of it is understanding how that infrastructure works so that when they're planning the flight, you know that they have good command and control. So what we have to do in that sense is be able to model the next infrastructure that comes out for command and control, whether that's SATCOM or 5G and modeling phased array. So we have to be nimble to model the infrastructure and be able to give some sort of level of risk to the operator that they might incur during the flight.
Do you feel like what it is that you're doing will help advance the cause of integration of UAVs into the national airspace?
For sure, yeah. I think even before that, let's get them flying. You know, I mean, let's break the barrier of beyond visual line of sight. Let's understand what it means to prove a safety case to the FAA. So does that mean proving where you have command and control? Does that mean understanding how GPS accuracy affects your flight? Or understanding what airspaces you need to stay out of? What does a safety case look like to the FAA to be able to fly beyond visual line of sight? And that's our number one goal, is to understand that menu and prepare that for the operator as a safety case for the FAA.
Well, Chris, I hope you have a great show here. We are out of time, unfortunately, but it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and interesting stuff. I'd like to come over and have a look and get a little bit better idea in my head as to what it is that you're talking about.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That is going to do it for today from the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. We're back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with more live from the Aero TV network. So we hope you will join us then. Until then, I'm Tom Patton. We'll see you tomorrow.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International's XPONENTIAL 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonex Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonexaerospace.com.
Continental Motors Group. Manned and unmanned, Continental has been a pivotal part of aviation and aerospace history and wants to be a part of your mission. Gas or diesel, certified or experimental, Continental is investing in your future. www.continentalmotors.aero.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Let Patrick Neal and Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
Thank you.